What if a single secret, born in a quiet forest, hidden inside a forbidden marriage, shattered the peace of an entire kingdom? What if the most powerful man in England fell in love with a woman he was never supposed to even look at, and their choice ignited betrayals, rebellions, and murders that still haunt British history? Tonight, we're pulling apart the lie at the center of their marriage, a lie so dangerous that kings died, armies rose, and even their children vanished into the shadows of the Tower of London. Before we begin, hit subscribe, because at Ancient Exposé, we dig up the stories other historians whisper about. And trust me, you do not want to miss what comes next. The story begins not with crowns or battles, but with a widow standing under an oak tree. Her dress was faded, her hands trembled, and she held in her arms the only thing she still had left, her two little boys. Her name was Elizabeth Woodville, a commoner, a Lancastrian widow, the wrong woman, from the wrong family, at the wrong time in history. And riding straight toward her that morning was the brand new King of England, Edward IV, tall, golden, 22 years old, and already a legend on the battlefield. A king crowned by war, adored by crowds, feared by enemies, and widely known for being unable to resist a pretty face. But when Edward saw Elizabeth, something strange happened. He didn't flirt. He didn't smirk. He stopped. Why? Because she wasn't begging for his attention. She was begging for justice. Her husband had died fighting for the enemy, Henry VI. Her lands had been stolen. And the king she stood before was the man her late husband once tried to kill. Imagine that moment, a commoner widow kneeling in the dirt, a young king staring down at a life his victory had destroyed, two worlds that should never touch, suddenly colliding. Edward promised to look into it, but the truth? He was already obsessed. And here comes the first crack in England's foundation, because Edward IV, victorious warrior and newly established king, was about to make the most reckless decision of his life. Over the next weeks, he sought Elizabeth in secret. He visited the Woodville home at night. He brushed aside counselors, advisors, even his own family. And each time, Elizabeth told him no. She wouldn't be his mistress. She wouldn't be his plaything. She wouldn't risk her honor or her son's futures for a king famous for breaking hearts as easily as he broke armies. And then, the king said the words that changed everything. "Then I will marry you." Elizabeth thought he was joking. England would never accept a commoner queen. His advisors would revolt. His allies would turn against him. His enemies would strike back. But Edward wasn't joking. He was in love. And so, on a warm spring morning in 1464, in a small room lit by only 2 candles, Edward IV married Elizabeth Woodville in absolute secrecy. No witnesses except her mother, no court, no nobles, no blessing from the powerful men who helped put Edward on the throne. A king married a widow beneath the rank of even the lowest baron. That alone was scandalous. But what neither of them realized, not yet, was that their wedding had just lit the fuse under a kingdom already ready to explode. When Edward finally confessed the marriage, his court froze. Shocked silence, disbelief, then outrage. His strongest ally, Richard Neville, the mighty Earl of Warwick, known as the Kingmaker, felt humiliated. He had been negotiating a royal marriage for Edward with France. Months of diplomacy, ruined. Political alliances, shattered. Warwick's influence, destroyed. "It cannot be true," he supposedly whispered. But it was. And just like that, Edward's greatest supporter became his greatest enemy. But Warwick wasn't the only one enraged. The nobles saw the Woodvilles, Elizabeth's enormous, ambitious family, march into court and begin taking the best marriages, the best titles, the best wealth. Every sister married up. Every brother received lands and honors. The commoner family was rising faster than anyone in England's memory. To the old noble families, it looked like witchcraft. And a rumor began spreading, a whisper. a poison. Elizabeth bewitched the king. Some said she cast a spell. Some said her mother practiced dark magic. Some even claimed the Woodvilles descended from a mythical water goddess. But the truth was even more dangerous. The nobles weren't afraid the Woodvilles used magic. They were afraid the Woodvilles used influence. The kingdom was dividing, fast. Soon, alliances cracked, accusations flew, and Warwick, the kingmaker, made a decision that would throw England into chaos. If Edward wouldn't listen to him, Warwick would replace him. He turned Edward's own brother, George, Duke of Clarence, against him. He raised rebellions. He spread rumors that Edward wasn't even the real son of the Duke of York, that he was illegitimate and had no right to be king. And the strangest part? People believed it. The lie that Edward IV was a bastard spread from taverns to castles. Why? Because in the eyes of many, no true king would have married Elizabeth Woodville. The marriage had become a weapon, one used to destroy the king's credibility, and the kingdom split clean in two. You were either York or Woodville. You were either loyal to the king or loyal to the kingmaker. And the lie that had begun in whispers was about to spill blood. Warwick struck. Rebellions rose, battles erupted, and in a stunning twist, Warwick actually captured the king, his own cousin, holding Edward prisoner like a disobedient child. Elizabeth was pregnant when she heard the news. Imagine that terror. A young queen, a target, alone in a court filled with enemies. Warwick executed Elizabeth's father and her brother. Their heads were stuck on poles. A warning. The message was clear. The Woodville rise ends now. For a moment it looked like Warwick had won, but the kingdom refused to obey him, and Edward escaped. Warwick fled, and England braced itself for the next blow, because the kingmaker wasn't done. He made a pact with the very people he once fought, the Lancastrians, the enemies of the Yorks, and together they launched a coordinated attack to destroy Edward forever. England hadn't seen anything like it. A civil war inside a civil war, former allies turning traitor, two armies claiming God's favor, two queens, Elizabeth Woodville and Margaret of Anjou, fighting for survival, and right in the center, the lie that started with a secret marriage. Edward returned from exile like a storm. He swept across England with speed no one expected. He defeated Warwick at Barnet, killing the kingmaker with his own hands. He crushed the Lancastrian heir at Tewkesbury, ending one royal bloodline forever. When he rode back into London, victorious once more, his first stop wasn't the palace. He went straight to Westminster Abbey, to Elizabeth. She had given birth in sanctuary to the son who would become Edward V, a new hope, a new heir, a new beginning. For a moment, the kingdom breathed. It looked like Edward's gamble had paid off. His love for Elizabeth had survived war, betrayal, and bloodshed. He had defeated every enemy thrown his way. But fate wasn't done with them. Not even close. Because years later, after Edward suddenly died at just 40 years old, the lie that once divided England returned to destroy the next generation. Elizabeth's son, Edward V, never reached the throne. Edward's own brother, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, declared that Edward's marriage to Elizabeth had been illegal. He resurrected the old rumor that Edward had secretly been married before, that Elizabeth had never truly been queen, that her children were bastards with no rights. Sound familiar? The same lie that once tried to dethrone Edward was now used to disinherit his children. Richard seized the boys, Edward V and his little brother Richard. He locked them in the Tower of London for their protection. And then they disappeared, vanished from all records, never seen again. The kingdom whispered, "The princes are dead," murdered, silenced, and all fingers pointed back to Richard. Elizabeth's world collapsed. Her sons were gone, her brother murdered, her power stripped away, and the crown stolen by a man she once trusted. But Elizabeth Woodville was not done fighting. In the shadows, she formed one last alliance with Lady Margaret Beaufort, mother of Henry Tudor, two grieving mothers, two women who lost everything to Yorkist violence, Two women determined to tear Richard III from the throne, and together they succeeded. Henry Tudor invaded England, defeated Richard, married Elizabeth's daughter, Elizabeth of York, and united the houses of Lancaster and York forever. The lie that tore England apart finally forced the kingdom back together. But it came at the cost of nearly every person Elizabeth had ever loved. Edward and Elizabeth's marriage began in passion. It ended in blood, and the lie at its center, that a king could defy the rules of power without consequence, shaped English history for generations. Their love changed the throne, destroyed families, ended dynasties, and gave birth to the Tudors, a love story that became a tragedy, a marriage that became a battlefield, a secret that divided England. What do you think? Was their marriage destiny or a disaster waiting to happen? Let me know in the comments below. And if you love digging into the dangerous, hidden corners of history, make sure you're subscribed to Ancient Exposé, because the past isn't finished with us yet.